Hello, my name is Ashley and I'm here to show you how to tune your violin. So, there's just a few things that you'll need to have and there's a few things that you'll need to know before we get started tuning. First, you'll need a tuning app or a tuning device. You might, be a guitarist or you might have bought a tuning device such as a Snark or a Korg. That's great. You can also download a tuning app right to your phone. It's important to know that not all tuning apps work well. I like an app called Tuner Lite, which I think is only available for the iPhone. And if you have an Android, I'm not really sure, but I recommend trying a few out before you find that one that works well. You know if it works well, if it really gives you a clear reading of what the sound is. Sometimes you'll see a dial tone bouncing back and forth, and that's when you know a tuning app is not so good. So Tuner Lite for iPhone, that's what I recommend. If you're an Android user, read reviews, get one that has a good review, and if you don't like it, try a new one. So download a tuning app. Tuner Lite is great. The next thing that you'll need to know is the musical alphabet. So if you're a music house parent, we've taught your students the musical alphabet from the first couple of classes in violin. So they know the musical alphabet, and they know that the musical alphabet is just like the regular alphabet, but it stops at G. So we start at A, go up to B, go up to C, D, E, F, G, and then we go back up to our higher A. So it repeats itself. It goes right back up to A, and it starts to get higher from there. So you'll need to know what the musical alphabet is. You need to know that, if you're tuning the A string and you see G, that means it's one step too low and you need to go up one step to A. So G and then A, not H. So you'll also need to know what a flat sign looks like. A flat sign looks like a B, and it means that it's, if you see A flat, that's lower than a regular A. You'll need to know what a sharp sign looks like. It looks like a hashtag. So if you see A sharp, when you pluck your A string, that means it's just a little bit higher than what you're going for, which is just regular A. So again, if you're tuning the A string on the violin with a tuner and you see G, is it one step lower than what you want or one step higher? Yeah, so G is gonna mean that it's too low. You need to go one step up. If it says A flat, yes, it's still too low. It's 1/2 step lower than what we want. And if you see A sharp, it's just a little bit too high. It's 1/2 step higher than what we want. If you're tuning the E string and the tuner says it's reading that it's an F, that means you're one step higher than what you want. And if you're tuning the E string and the tuner says that it's an A, it's possible that you're way too high, but most likely you're way too low, and you need to tune up several steps from A to B to C to D all the way up to E. So that means you need to get quite a bit higher. But it's important for you to know what an E sounds like. So if you hear something that sounds high and you get an A, it could be too high. So it's good to know kind of like what you're aiming for. So one thing I'd recommend is if you don't know what it's supposed to sound like and you don't have an idea in your head already of what it's supposed to sound like, to Google what should an A on my violin sound like, and you'll get like probably a YouTube video that plays you an A. Or you could do the same thing for like any other string. What should a G sound like? What should a D sound like? So kind of know in advance what you're aiming for. So the next thing that is really important to know is that it's very, very, very easy to break a string. Ideally, when you're tuning, you're just using the fine tuners down here. The fine tuners, typically you can go a whole step or sometimes 2 steps if you need to, higher or lower. And so ideally you're using your fine tuners. So your fine tuners, when you turn them to the right, it's gonna make the sound higher. So the string is going to get tighter and it's going to sound higher. So turning to the right makes it higher. Turning to the left makes it lower. So you can remember left, low. They both have an L. So the left is going to make a lower sound. The right is going to make a higher sound. The other thing, you know, if not the other thing, but if you're having, you know, the tuners aren't working out and you've tightened them all the way and you still need to go higher, well, you might have to start using the pegs. Now, this is where it's important to know that it's really, really easy to break a string with the violin. It's not like tuning guitar. With a guitar, you can turn the pegs and you don't have, you don't really risk breaking quite as much as you do with the violin. So when you're turning the pegs, turning away from you is going to make it higher. Turning towards you is going to make it lower. So basically, turning away is tightening it, and when you tighten it, it gets higher. When I'm tuning using the pegs, I always grip my violin and I put my finger over the string like that I'm tuning. And that makes it so that there's something holding it back a little bit from moving too quickly when you're turning. So you can kind of like stop it from moving too quickly, and if it moves too quickly, sometimes that's when it breaks. When you're turning the peg, sometimes you might need to also push it in while you're turning, because what's really holding the peg inside the peg box, this is the peg box right here, what's holding the peg inside the hole and inside the peg box is the fact that it's shaped like a triangle. So it's thicker on the outside and it's thinner down here. So you're really kind of wedging it in when you're turning. So sometimes, you know, if you're turning it and it bounces right back, you're going to need to push in while you turn. When you're turning, get a good grip on it. When you're turning, you want to make sure that you're only turning a tiny, tiny bit, like a centimeter or millimeter at a time. So turn it really slowly when you're turning it, or turn it, you know, loosening it, you don't have to risk breaking it. If you want it to be lower, then you don't have as much risk, but you're still going to want to just turn it a little tiny bit at a time. So be very careful when turning the pegs. So I want you to pull out your, now that you know a few things, I think you're ready to go. Pull out your tuning app. If you're using InstaTuner, you're going to see this. On the left, you have a tuning fork. That needs to be highlighted in order for the microphone to turn on and for your phone to be picking up on sounds. On the right, you're going to hear an A sound. So violinists, and if you're more experienced with tuning, violinists tune to an A, and they tune their A first, and then once they hear the A, they're able to determine what an E should sound like and so forth. But start by highlighting the tuning fork. Now the tuning fork, you can tell as you're talking, it's picking up everything. So right now it's moving back and forth as I'm talking. So when you're tuning, it's really important that you're totally quiet. You can't hear any external noises. You only want it to hear your violin. So I like to put my app right on top of my violin so it can really hear the sound that my violin is making. It's here, it can pick up on the vibration. So let's start by tuning the A string. So go ahead and put your app on top of your violin and pluck A. So do that again. I'm going to be quiet. Pluck A. No other sounds are coming out. Ready? Go. Okay. What did your tuning app say? If it said something like F or G, you might be quite a bit lower and you might need to really turn the fine tuner all the way to the right. You may need to move the peg. Remember, be careful. If it said A flat, or it just said A, but the dial was a little bit to the left and not right in the middle, you might need to just tune it a tiny bit to get it really finely tuned. If it said A sharp, you might be a little bit, too high, turn it to the left. If it said B, you might be really high and turn it way more to the left. So you could maybe pause the video, tweak that. It's going to take a lot of finagling. You're going to be going back and forth and back and forth. The first couple of times that you tune a violin, it just takes some time to get used to it. So the first couple of times you're going to be going back and forth and back and forth until you get it just right. Your violin should stay in tune for the most part on a day-to-day basis, but you'll need to, as long as you're kind of tuning it up on a daily basis, you're probably going to not have to do some drastic tuning. If you're staying inside a lot like we are right now, you know, your violin should stay basically in tune. If you tune the E string, let's try tuning the E string. So go ahead, open up your tuner. Let's hear an E. All right, what did it say? If it said F, do we need to go higher or lower? If it said F, we're way too high, right? So A, B, C, D, E, think of the alphabet. F is higher than E, right? If you see D, then you're too low. You need to get higher, up to E. If you're getting kind of confused and you're like, I have no idea, it's saying something completely different, the tuner light should give you a good reading. So in that case, you might want to see, you know, what am I supposed to sound like? Is it way different? Is it, you know, if I'm tuning my A string and it's telling me that it's F, you know, you might need to go up to G, up to A. But if you're getting kind of confused, check in, like I said, Google what an A should sound like, Google what an E should sound like, so you have an idea of what you're working with. So those are the basics of tuning. It should give you a good start. Just be really careful with not turning those pegs too fast, and if you can avoid using the pegs at all, avoid using the pegs, just use the fine tuners. Again, these are the pegs. Avoid using those if you can. If you can stick to using the fine tuners, use the fine tuners. You're not going to risk breaking as much. If you have more questions, you can reach out to us, info@musichouseinc.com, or call us, and we can set up a Zoom call so that we can do a one-on-one tuning session. Thanks so much. Good luck.